Something's gone terribly wrong, terribly wrong. It's a good thing I have my makeup on. All right, disable the camera. Is that working now, Annette? I think I'm seeing my little thing flashing, so I think we're working. And Annette's trying to work out her audio. Always the joy of live that things can just go wrong, will go wrong. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully Annette will join us with audio soon.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was muted because,
Okay.
duh, this is my first live. Please bear with me. I'm trying really hard. So, thank you everyone for being here with us today. And we are going to be talking about Palentines, which is something that we were been talking about before, Galentines, Palentines. And I'm so excited to get started. So, Jillian, why don't you talk a little bit about how we came up with this idea while I just double check the LinkedIn feed?
Okay, so I think that it was brought about by this being February, and February 14th is, of course, has already passed us, but that was Valentine's Day. And I think Valentine's Day is really just now grown into a whole thing. It's not just about you and your sweetheart, whoever your sweetheart is. And sometimes it's a four-legged sweetheart in your life, or your little dog or cat or whatever. But I think what it is that people are beginning to realize that Valentine's Day is really about, your pals, your friends. And we kind of thought that's a really good topic on LinkedIn, because one of the nice things about LinkedIn is when we can have a situation where we can move our virtual conversations into real relationships. I think that's really great. And that's what Annette and I have. We've actually never met in person. You would not believe this. One day I know we will meet in person, but in the meantime, it's as if we just literally live down the road. We talk almost daily in the DMs. We meet once a month here to do this LinkedIn audio event and podcast. We've actually been on each other's LinkedIn lives as guests and hosts and everything else. And that's how you actually move your conversations from the public forum to the private forum. And then we'll talk about in-person things and all that sort of stuff later. But that's a start with how this came to be.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's so funny how things sort of translate in this well, not new now, but this digital world that we find ourselves in. I remember 20 years ago, my husband was traveling a lot to Europe. He was even in Hong Kong. He was all over the place. And so he'd be gone for a couple of weeks. So we would do like video talking to each other, but it was really staticky and glitchy. And, if you get on for 5 minutes, like, okay, that's enough. Let me just sign off because right? Because it's just too, and I don't know if you ever did video back then,
Yep.
but video calls. And now, even though we have yet to meet and I'm thinking if you move away from if you change your I don't know, with home base, I guess I might say, because I know you travel a lot. I think we might have a better shot to get together. But we both have friends all over the world, you even and more so than I do. But we both know Michelle Raymond in Australia. We both talk to her on video. I used to talk to her on Clubhouse all the time. And it was, but I feel like I really know her, even though I have yet to meet her. And unless I go to a conference in the States where she's speaking, I probably will not.
I know what you mean. And and we can't always make those in-person connections. We can't always do it. So I think sometimes when we have opportunities available to us, we do it. So I'll give you an example. The day before Valentine's Day this year, our good friend Debbie Weems, who lives in Florida. When I was in Florida last year, I wanted to see Debbie and I just could never get there. I was bouncing around from apartment to apartment. And she happened to be coming here. I was talking with Kevin D. Turner, another one of our friends, and we were talking after our live, and he let me know that Debbie was coming to town. She was going to be in Texas and she was going to come and be staying with him and his wife, Dana. And we just kind of jokingly said, "Oh, you should drive up and surprise her." And I just went, "Well, maybe we should." And yeah, I looked at the map. It was 4 hours and it was just like, "Wow, that's a long drive." And then I just thought to myself, "Well, when am I ever going to have I might not have this opportunity again." So sometimes I think you just lean in and you do it. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit of work. I know when Kevin came to town, you did a little bit of work to go in and see him, didn't you? Oh, Annette?
Yes, yes, certainly. And speaking of Kevin, he is here backstage coming up to join us on stage.
Oh, fun.
And, it was so fun to meet him. He actually came to the city, and I live very close to New York City. And so I could not miss the opportunity to go in and meet him. And it's always so lovely as I bring Kevin on stage with us. It's always so lovely when you meet someone and they're, like, even nicer in person, and Kevin is one of those people. So, Kevin, hi, thanks for joining us.
And while Kevin's getting his microphone, I'll
Yes.
just I'll just confess and let everybody know that, like, when I heard that Kevin was gonna go to New York and him and Dana were gonna go on this trip and they were gonna go and it was like they're gonna do LinkedIn and they were gonna see everybody and do sort of like almost a LinkedIn local, and I went, "Kevin, that's a long way to go from Texas to New York for a LinkedIn local, my goodness." And again, it was sort of one of those things where you just kind of have that idea of like, well, why not? And I think sometimes you need to listen to those sort of like I call them intuitive hits, where it's like we wouldn't if we definitely didn't want to do something, we would just go, well, that's ridiculous. Of course, I'm not going to go. But if there's a part of you that says, you know what, maybe that would be fun, I think you should just kind of go with it. And I know another person who did that was Lanier Johnston. And I think it was Karen Tisdale over in Australia. And Karen happened to be visiting New Zealand. And again, we're Americans. So, of course, we think Australia and New Zealand are like absolutely like, an hour away from each other, but they're not. They're like totally different countries with different time zones and everything. And I believe that when Karen went on vacation to New Zealand, Lanier hopped in the car and I think she drove like 3.5 hours to go meet her for a cup of coffee. So I just love when you hear those kind of stories.
Oh, me too, me too. So, Kevin, we see your face now, and if you have unmuted, please, say hi and share some of your thoughts.
He must be still working on his microphone.
Yeah, the mute is right below. I can't see how to unmute you myself. They've changed these things a little bit.
Oh, maybe he's going to go back
Yeah,
out and come back in.
that happened the last time I think he had, okay, let's give this another try.
There
Okay.
we go.
There we go.
Yay!
Yay.
I've never not had it work. I've done a bunch of these and it always works, but not today.
Well, you're here now, and
And,
so
and, and we're talking about you because, I recently saw you at your house and
Yeah.
Annette traveled in New York and she traveled a little bit to go visit you. And of course, you traveled a big bit to go from Texas to New York. And we are just talking about how just sometimes you get that idea, maybe I should do this. And it's probably absolutely insane, but we listen to it and we do it anyway.
And I think you got to do it every now and then, right? Sometimes they're short trips, but other times they're a little bit more, but they're absolutely worth it. Connecting with people in real life is always just amazing, especially if you've known them. Some of them known 10, 15 years. So, when you run into them, it is incredible. And it is neat when you run into people that are exactly who they are. right?
Mm.
We're not like going, well, who are you? We know each other, you know,
Right.
and that's the neat part.
Yeah, they look like they're the pictures you've seen of them, right? If you haven't seen them on video. And and I think of that. I'm going to a conference in Atlanta in August, and I'm trying to hook up with because I know quite a few people in Atlanta. I'm thinking of I know a lot of people in Toronto, so I'm trying to think, and I may be knowing even more in Texas. So I try to think of places where, I know a handful of people. Not that, and part of it is time and money,
Mhm.
to hop on a plane and take like a 4-hour flight and spend the money and hotel and flight and all that stuff to meet one person is for me right now kind of hard to justify.
Oh yeah. You can almost sometimes tempt people that you know and say, hey, why don't you set up like a LinkedIn local? And you
Mm.
get to meet like 30 people you wanted to meet. And so you can make it really efficient in that sense. And I've even had people ask me, oh, if you could set it up, I'll come in. So that's
So
almost,
so you should do it because you know how.
yeah. I think
So
that's
maybe
fun.
to educate me and actually anybody else who's listening to us. So LinkedIn Local, is that a real thing? Like, do you sponsor one for your area? Do you just slap it together and you say, okay, I'm gonna hold a LinkedIn Local here where I am? And like, how does that all work? Because I think LinkedIn locals were like a thing before COVID, then COVID killed them. And then I don't know how many came back. So I think a lot
Yeah.
of us really don't know the LinkedIn local rules.
It was actually an official LinkedIn program because
Hmm.
LinkedIn wanted to kind of grassroots the growth.
Well,
And they thought, we'll go out and we'll give everybody permission. You can use the logo. They
mhm.
used to actually send, some giveaways and stuff like that. You come in, you get a coffee mug or, something like that. So it was an actual program within LinkedIn. And then people started feeling like the people who were running it were more LinkedIn than the LinkedIn people, right? And the LinkedIn people are, well, you got too much power. And
Oh,
so they pulled it back. Actually, it was pulled back even before COVID. They kind of started
oh.
saying, you can't do this. You can't use the LinkedIn local name. You can't do
Ugh.
that. They've kind of eased up on the rules again.
Well,
And
I
so
mean,
they're,
but you can do it now. I mean, I actually when
there's a lot of things we can do in that. I can speed in my car. And I do.
Doesn't mean you're not going to get a
well,
ticket.
Yeah, I
see,
might get caught one day.
but the truth is that I learned about this from Beth Granger, who does them in her area, at a meetup kind of thing in the city, and I was talking about it. And LinkedIn actually does have a page, and if you want to run LinkedIn locals, as they're doing now, Phil and Rachel and another person, they're doing them in Atlanta. You are allowed to use
Oh
their
yeah.
logos. You are allowed to have it a LinkedIn local. I have mine is LinkedIn local of Fairfield County. I
Mhm.
have a website for it, but I don't you can't own that. Like if Jillian, if you were my neighbor and you said, I'm going to start doing LinkedIn Fairfield County, you can do that. I mean, I can't make it proprietary
Yeah.
to me.
And you cannot get a website that says LinkedIn Fairfield.
Oh,
They
wow.
they don't allow that kind of stuff either. So, but
Really?
Wow.
no,
Well,
they're
I
slowly
they,
re-embracing it.
So
they
so are people tying these ins with like a meetup or something, or they
well,
just keep it within LinkedIn?
no, it's not within LinkedIn. Like if I do mine, I advertise it on Eventbrite, and you sell tickets for it if you want to. The
Mhm.
thing is the main thing is that you have to make it clear that this is not a LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
sponsored
Yeah,
event,
yeah.
Yeah,
and you have
And
to
you're
make
not
it clear.
LinkedIn.
Yeah,
got
that
it.
I don't work for LinkedIn. This is not sponsored by LinkedIn. But I will tell you, and I haven't done one for a few months, but I've done a few of them that went over really pretty well.
Mhm.
So I obviously I don't know what it was like before, 2 years ago, but when I went and set it up, it really was not, not difficult at all.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
and it just for LinkedIn, it got out of hand, and that's why they came up with those rules that you can't pretend to be LinkedIn. And people were doing that. I mean, they were as if they were established as LinkedIn in their cities, and people thought they did. They thought they actually worked for LinkedIn. And believe it or not, a lot of them would put LinkedIn logos on their experience area, on their profiles, even.
mm,
And that's when LinkedIn kind of went, we got to stop that. We got to change rules. And they're just starting to get really back into being more supportive of it.
hmm. I would think there's actually it's too bad this can't be like an official sort of LinkedIn, controlled club, so to
Do
speak.
you want LinkedIn controlled?
Well, I guess it would be better if it was an organized network because, like, one of the things, like, I'm in Toastmasters, and and with Toastmasters, they have Find a Club. They have a website. It's called Find a
Mhm.
Toastmasters Club. Anytime I'm traveling somewhere, I can actually look in and I can see, is there a club in, maybe I'm going to go to Aberdeen, Scotland. I could look to see if there's a Toastmasters club in Aberdeen. I could find out, when do they meet, who runs the club, how to get in touch with them, so that if I was traveling through that area and I wanted to attend one of their meetings, I can reach out to them. And I've done that before,
Mhm.
where I did it in Vancouver. I've done it a couple of other places across the world. And I think, wouldn't that be brilliant, so that, like, kind of going back to what Annette said, "Oh, I'd like to go on vacation," so maybe I want to go on vacation to, I don't know, Vancouver, Canada, and I want to look and see if there's a LinkedIn local there. Wouldn't it be awesome if I could, now I can write it off for business, because maybe I could say, "Hey, I'm coming to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Would you like me to come and talk about whatever my LinkedIn expertise is?" And then you're meeting other people, you're giving back. I just think it would be cool to see this kind of go to a different level.
I,
Well,
I I don't think LinkedIn will do it
Mm,
in that sense because again, I think they were so worried about losing control of the brand, and they're funny about that kind of stuff. Anytime you use the name, they either want to control it completely or they don't even want to know about it, kind of. But technically, the way LinkedIn looks at that is, yeah, they've got a club. It's in every town, right?
mm.
It's in every country except for
so
China.
I will say, while we're here chatting, I typed started typing LinkedIn local in the search, and a bunch of LinkedIn locals came up. So if you
Oh
were
yeah,
interested in doing that, Jillian, you might just be able to, because when I put in LinkedIn local in the LinkedIn search, it comes up with LinkedIn local Fairfield County,
yeah,
LinkedIn local Long Island. And so, I
they're out
suppose
there.
you could look for some place like that. But again, you have to be very clear about, as Kevin said, they have a page with very detailed
Mhm.
information on what you can do, what you can't. They do give you logos to download. So
Yeah,
I think of it as kind of a semi official kind of
yeah.
thing.
Cool. So, Kevin, when you did your trip up to New York, to kind of go back for a circle to what we were talking about in the first
Yeah.
place, was
Yeah.
that an actual LinkedIn local event in New York City?
The people that kind of pushed it forward, yes, they run LinkedIn locals, but it just kind of came out of, it was funny. It just kind of came out of a conversation. And it was like, well, would you come up? I was like, yeah. And oh, we can build something out of this. And then, a couple other people joined. So it kind of snowballed in itself. It wasn't really planned as a LinkedIn local in that sense, but two of the people that are in it are in LinkedIn local New York.
Yeah.
Um, but it just
Well,
kind of pulled together. Uh, you tell you what amazed me, and I can't remember the guy's name. It was like 5 years ago. He was an Australian, and he was coming to the United States, and he actually hooked up with both LinkedIn locals, same way, Googled it, look out on LinkedIn. He found them all, and he planned his trip across the United States through these LinkedIn locals meetings, right? And he got people on LinkedIn that he didn't even know that got interested in his trip to America. He was going to come here, buy a car, drive across the country, hit different places. And based on who responded, kind of planned his way to get across the United States. And he
Wow.
coordinated it all through LinkedIn. And he got about halfway through and he was reporting it all and then just stopped. So I don't know what happened.
Oh, gee. What a great story. But what a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
story
And
that
but
is.
you can do that on this platform.
That reminds me, for the life of me, I cannot remember this guy's name. So if anybody knows this guy's name, please, let us put it in the comments and let us know. But I remember there's a guy that lives in New York, and he is happy to pick up anybody in who comes to New York at the airport if you're on LinkedIn.
Oh,
So if you're one of his LinkedIn connections, he will come and give you a ride from the airport and take you to your hotel because he likes to meet as many people that are from LinkedIn as possible. And he does it for free. Like he'll just pick you up at the airport and take you to your hotel. But he says he learns something from every single person that he
I'll bet.
meets.
I'll
And I
bet.
thought that was brilliant.
So,
Mhm.
one of the things that I just want to mention is 'cause you were asking about the thing in New York, Jillian. Kenneth Lang started this a couple of years ago. Actually, there he has a group of people that live. It's mostly people that live in the Metro New York area, or if they happen to be coming to this area. I'm guessing he reached out specifically, to Kevin, and we meet, or I should say, Kenneth sets up sort of meetings in New York. Sometimes it's meeting to have lunch.
Mhm.
Sometimes we've gotten lucky. I've gotten lucky one time where one of member of the group had connection at LinkedIn, and we got to go to LinkedIn and even have lunch there and get the tour and everything. But Kenneth really started doing this, and that's when I was first able to meet Beth Granger. For that one, Bobby Umar flew in from Toronto. Rachel Simon came up from Atlanta. Brenda even Meller came down from Michigan. And, that was, I think, kind of the first one. And it was in the summer, not last summer, but the summer before. And there have been a few since then
Mhm.
that I went in for. The most recent was the one that where Kevin came. And I know I was late, but there was a panel arranged, and they did. Kenneth hooked up with another group, and so it was kind of a combined event.
Mm. And wasn't there even a thing for a while when I remember when the collaborative articles came out, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 ago,
Mhm.
and LinkedIn was, like, really pushing that, and then they decided to lean in and have some sort of training event, and then they had the main one, which was, I think, in New York City, and they had some people virtual. So I remember Kevin and I, we were both virtually
Yep,
attending that
I
event.
was there in the
Yep.
Yeah.
city.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and other people came in person like you, Annette, and then after that, LinkedIn, all of a sudden, they decided they were gonna do more of these, and I remember they were gonna do one in San Francisco. They had all these different places, and then boom, that disappeared. Do you know any of that sort of backstory, Kevin, about that
I
looked exciting, and then boom, they put the kibosh on
and
it.
they were riding high in collaborative articles, and then some issues came up with collaborative articles. One of them is the blue badges got mad that they were giving out gold badges because that sounds better, doesn't it? If you're exchanging metals, gold medal might be better than blue medal. They were upset. They put a lot of pressure on collaborative articles to the point where they weren't able to issue those blue badges anymore.
Mm,
So my understanding is that it just kind of changed at that point. There was a lot of internal pressure to change the way they were doing things. And I think it was a shame because I thought it was a great driving tool to get people involved.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely, and I know that, like, There was one person, again, I never remember names, but I remember there was one woman in Florida who was, like, she was gonna go to every one of these.
Mhm.
She just loved the excitement of being able, and you had to pay to get out there, like, it
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
you had to get your own transportation. I think you had to buy a ticket, I can't
Well,
remember
I
or not.
almost did the San Francisco one,
Mm.
but they didn't let me know until 4 days ahead of time.
Oh, you can't book a
Yeah.
flight like
Well,
that?
and their thought was, "Well, we want kinda locals first."
Mm.
And so they're like, "Well, if there's room, we'll invite you." It's like 4 days. The ticket from Dallas to San Francisco in 4 days is not it you can get to Europe cheaper, you know? It's like, it's
Right.
not one to do.
And it's not like you can get in the car. It's a
No, no,
long
it's
way
too far, it's too
away.
far.
Mm, mm.
So that was a bum. Then there was a bunch of people that, we were all excited because 'cause we're gonna meet again,
Mm.
first time, but, couldn't make that happen. I couldn't make the first one, and that's why I did the virtual, but I think I let a lot of people know that this was going on and got them invited locally, at least, in
Yep.
that sense.
Mm.
Well, I and since our topic is Palentines, I will have to, again, give that shout out to Kenneth Lang for really helping to make those in person meetings possible by getting people on a list, people he knows local to
Mhm,
the area. And then if like I was hanging out with Shannon Russell at Podfest, and I found out, oh, she lives in New Jersey, so I asked Kevin to add her to the list, and he did because she's local. So he actually, most of the people on that list, I believe, are in the sort of the tri-state area.
mhm,
But it really does make a difference to meet people in person. I know that I have become, maybe accelerated the going from, "Oh, I kinda know you. Oh, I kinda like you," to, "Oh, wow, you are one of my besties," much shorter after meeting somebody in person. And Jillian knows me pretty well. She knows I'm not one of them people. I'm like, "Yeah, I kinda know you. Yeah, I know you a little bit more, maybe a little," and it's like a long stretch, but it really does kind of, I think it accelerates that. I went to an event last week where a video coach that I'm working with in her community, she lives in New York City, and she came to Connecticut and she was speaking at an event. And boy, I can still feel the big hug I got from her, because
Mm.
I see her every week on video. And but now it's like I feel like she's kind of my friend.
Yes, yes, and there really is something about when you've met somebody in person. Kevin and I, we had to go all the way. Here we are in Texas, but
mhm,
together, but, opposite ends of the state, of course, but we had to go all the way to England to meet in England, which is kind of crazy and roundabout, but we met, and then, of course, we forged, more in-person meetings when we got back here to the States, and we've seen each other a couple times now. But I can tell you that, like, when you've met somebody, like, for instance, when I was in the UK, I got to meet Ashley Leeds, and we met him. I met him at Uplift Live, and of course, we got our picture taken, and it was wonderful. And then I stayed in touch with him, and I went to see him while we were on vacation in his part of England, which is down in the Devon area. And I stopped off with my family and we had tea. We
mm, mm,
just
mm,
and there was something so fun about going. Ashley's a live streamer, to going into his shed, which is where his studio is, and seeing his setup, because we see and I've seen Kevin's setup. Like, it's really fun to have that backstage tour of where somebody's always doing their calls from and stuff. It's really fun. And then last week, or I think it was last week I was on Ashley's show, and here I was back in the front again,
mhm.
seeing it. But it was like I knew, like, the little secrets. Like, one of his little secrets is here I am, I'm telling the world. He
No,
has
no,
a
no, we won't tell anybody. It's okay.
no, yeah, shush, don't tell anyone. But he has a voice command, and when he has a voice command, all of his lights and everything in his computer turn on, and I was like so impressed. It was so impressed. So those are just kind of the fun things that it's like, yes, it's wonderful to, we're friends with people as much as we can, but when you meet them in person, there's a whole different thing. But
Yeah.
the one thing I wanted to say is, if you can't meet people in person, then Zoom out with them. Get off LinkedIn. Don't always make that I only talk to them in the comments. Make time for people.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't you think, Kevin, like,
Oh,
in
yeah.
Annette, making, having those Zoom calls, whether it's a group of you that meets, I have a group, we meet once a month, and it's just like we no fail, we always meet on a Monday, 9 a.m., whatever. I have other people that it's like, we meet separately. Tina and I wrote a whole book together. Tina
Mhm.
Jarvett and I wrote a whole book on Zoom. So amazing things can happen when you take those relationships out of the public arena and go into the private space.
I would
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was gonna say I agree. Absolutely.
And I want to give a shout out to Niraj. Now I know that you know him really
Oh,
well, Jillian. I
yes.
don't know Niraj very well. I do read his posts. He's a really smart guy. But one thing that I see in his posts is he makes it he really works on meeting people in person. Didn't he set up like tea for you or something like
Yes,
that when
he
you were
He
did.
over
did,
there?
yeah.
I mean, he seems to really, he really puts a premium on meeting people in person, which I really admire.
Oh, absolutely. And today, I believe John Asperian posted that, Niraj came to town, and, just dropped by from Ireland to Cardiff, Wales, that's not like they're close, and stopped by. And it was just like they met, they had, tea together, coffee together, lunch together, something like that, posted a picture. But when we were going to, about this time last year, wasn't it, Kevin, when
Mhm.
Niraj actually went ahead and reached out to both Kevin and I and said, I want to make sure that I get to have some time with you guys when you come. And he was just like, what can I do to make this happen? And he said, are you going to be in London before the event? It was like he recognized that during the event, it was going to be crazy town,
Yeah.
which it was. So he offered, would you like to meet before? Would you like to meet after? How can we do this? Do you remember that, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and it is hard to coordinate, and especially when you're traveling, you don't really sometimes know when. So when somebody's really flexible like that, it does help, and he was.
And it was truly brilliant. And we kind of had said, well, before the event, we were all in separate places, so that wasn't going to work. But by serendipity, I guess that's what it is. We were all staying, Tina and I and Kevin and our respective spouses and whatever.
Mhm.
We were staying on an extra night, and so Niraj said, "Done. I will stay too. What would you like to do?" And we said, Tina has her heart set on having tea. She wanted to experience afternoon tea. And so Niraj made it happen for us. And that was amazing. It was an amazing event. It was so elegant, so beautiful. And we all went out for tea. And it meant so much to all of us. It was amazing.
Well, I will mention also one of the nice things about meeting people in person. When I got to meet Kevin in the city, I also got to meet his lovely wife.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
now I know the other half, maybe the better half, right,
probably
of
right.
TNG.
I love Dana, by the way. We're kindred book spirits. And
Mhm.
when I was recently visiting up with Dana and Kevin, of course, when Debbie Weems came to town, we went to the bookstore in their little town, and I just had to laugh because Dana bought a book, and it was just like, oh, I love that author too. So it's always nice to have kindred book people.
Oh yeah. And we still have a lot of our books locked up. Kind of like you, Jillian. We got them in jail.
Yes.
Got to break them out of jail soon.
Mine are actually coming soon. So we're
Yay!
actually in the midst of we're traveling back in March. Gonna go get those books in storage because we're on the precipice of another move in 2 weeks. So, anyways, that I digress. Never mind that. But yes, the books in storage is no fun thing.
No.
Book friends.
Well,
No, they might not let you open them when they get there. So be ready. You
you
have
know,
to coax them.
the bad thing about being a book lover, because I am as well, is that we have bookshelves upon bookshelves upon bookshelves of books. And so I periodically I sort of cleanse them and take them to the library where they resell them. They
Ooh,
resell used books. But I also, and I know Jillian, and we're really off topic here, but I think that maybe the theme of the books is when you find people who are your kindred spirits, and the only way you get to find them is by talking to them on a
Mm.
regular basis. If you're just going to their posts, commenting on their posts, you're never going to really get to know much about the other person. I don't think you may see what they like, how they work, a little peek into their value system, but um, like Jillian and I found out that we are, kindred spirits in our love of books, but we also both we get them from the library. You can get ebooks from the library, and I try to do that so that I'm not burning down trees or cutting down trees and taking up more shelf space on a book that I'll never read again.
Oh, well, I've always said I think you can tell a lot of people by snooping through their house and looking at their bookshelves because that tells you a lot about people. That tells you so much. You would actually be amazed. So when people like with me, I don't have my real bookshelves with me, and one day I will, but you can tell a lot when people are doing like lives and Zooms and you can see their bookcase. It's like, zoom in and look and see what
mhm.
those books are because it tells you a lot about people.
That's our big
Yes.
project here is bookshelves. We have
Mm.
none, and we used to have in the last couple of houses, we always had rooms that were built-in bookshelves. So when you have that, when you move to a place that doesn't, it's kind of like, where do you put them all? That's why
Well,
they're in boxes.
because I've been to your house, Kevin, I can actually say you traded in bookshelves for windows.
Yeah.
So Annette, Kevin has an incredible like windows that like look out into the wild and you can see birds and dancing raccoons and deer and everything like that. So we'll give you a pass that windows are, just an amazing thing to have. So sometimes that's a problem is like, well, where do I put the bookshelves? Because there's too many windows in this house.
Yeah. Still
So
got to
so
figure it out.
yes, yes. So
Got to
so
have both.
getting us back on topic, Annette, because I know we've kind of like gone off. But another thing, I know we're talking about pals and Palentine's Day and all that good stuff. And one thing that I really want people to think about, because right now there's a lot of people losing their jobs, right? Like let's just talk about the elephant in the room. There's a lot
Mhm.
of people that are losing their jobs right now. And I've always said one of the nicest things you can do for your pals on LinkedIn is give people recommendations, give them the review. And I think that that is something that it costs you nothing. And it's something where I am amazed at how often I am not doing this. And when you've done somebody a recommendation, post about it. I did that for somebody last week and maybe the week before, and I wrote a recommendation and I posted about it. And it's like that person got all sorts of accolades. So those are kind of the things that we can do for people that, puts them in the limelight because sometimes social media is too much about us. It's about me, 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 right? We're posting about this, we're doing this. And it's like when you can shine the light back on other people, that to me is being a real pal.
Yes, yes, I agree, and I am also guilty of not doing it enough. But one thing that I would say really quickly, and I have to turn the mic to Kevin because I think I cut you off, is sometimes if I'm giving somebody a recommendation, I will even ask them, What would you like me to recommend you for?" Because sometimes it's not maybe the what we think it is. So,
Mm,
so
mm.
Kevin, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. And I absolutely agree. It's really good to know, what do you want me to bring out? I usually make a couple suggestions. I could do something around this, this, and this. But what do you want to build out in your brand? And so it's always good to ask, because yeah, sometimes it surprises us, and we can help them get to where they need to be. Now, so the other thing is, if you're not comfortable yet doing those written recommendations, at least be endorsing all their skills. Anything
Mm.
that that they have, that you understand, obviously, give it to them, because that's huge on LinkedIn. Those endorsements, as far as getting found within LinkedIn, that's one of their big filters. So,
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought
oh
they
yeah,
were kind of like meh.
that's what people thought, but it's always about sorting the data. So that's how they do it. That's what recruiters pay for, is to be able to find you for titles, skills, locations, and that's how they pull them from. And then
How important is it, Kevin, to, have the skills, not just by themselves, but integrate the skills into each of your different experiences? Is that
they
worth doing that?
do look to see if you have the skill, and if it's also in the context of
Okay.
what you talk about, right? So yes, they do compare that. But the most important thing is, how many people recommend you for those skills, endorse you,
Mm,
because that's social proof. If I say I've got digital marketing, that's just me saying it. If 100
right.
people say I've got it, now we're talking, right? And if 10 people in that group are highly recommended for it too, that's kind of a multiplier. So LinkedIn, they're always ranking us, right, in results. So the more that they can trust that information, the more they push it up the rank. So part of that is those endorsements. How many you got on each one? And the other part is, if you got the skill listed, is it in the context of what you talk about, within the profile itself? Because if it's not, then it doesn't make any sense either. But they're always trying to have checkpoints, and those are good checkpoints.
Because I think I'm guilty of having, uh, skill endorsements for skills that are not current anymore. So things that I've done in the past,
Mhm.
well, that's not really what I want to focus. I don't really want to be found for that stuff. It's like whatever. It's like great, okay. I'm not a tech writer anymore, type of thing.
We should always, all that whole marketing piece, right? The whole branding piece should be focused on moving you forward. Wherever you
Mm,
want to go, build it towards that. I always say, in venture capital days, I used to be able to do employee tax accounting and stuff like that, payroll. I could do that calculated by hand before there was all this SaaS software for it. I'll never put that in my skill sets, and I'll never write it in the context of everything I do, because I never want to do it again. It was
nah.
terrible. So you take it out of the presentation, right? Branding presentations are the truth you want to tell. Maybe not the whole truth, but it's the truth you want to tell, right? And that's the way you should focus it. So you got old skills that don't make any sense anymore, get rid of them.
Mm,
You know, they don't need to
that's
be there. They're cluttering up the place.
And what about services? Is that still, because that's still at the top. That's at the
Yeah.
top of your profile still.
I think I still use the service program, and it still produces for me every month. So it's just a little harder to use now than it used to be.
Mm, mm. It was interesting yesterday, I was doing an experiment because something changed on my profile, and I decided to go back out into Safari because I always work
Mhm.
in Chrome, and I decided to go out through Safari and look at my LinkedIn page, my LinkedIn profile, not logged in. And I wanted to see if my profile would look different. And
Mhm.
what I actually discovered is that LinkedIn will show a bit of your profile without showing you can't really go too far. It's almost like a snapshot of your profile,
Yeah.
and then it encourages the person, well, if you want to see more, you got to log in. And what was really interesting was that LinkedIn chose to show my newsletters as my
Mhm.
recent activity. So you could see all of my newsletters sort of like stacked vertically. And I thought that was really interesting because that is not that is not the tab that I chose to lead with. And I would have assumed it would be posts because that's what I chose. And LinkedIn decided it would make it newsletters, and it showed my services and my newsletters, but pretty much nothing else you could see
Yeah.
too much about me.
Well, they started doing that about 2 years ago.
Mm.
The reason before, if you put public on your profile, everything on your profile could be public, could be indexed by the search engines, right? Recruiters who didn't want to pay $1,000 a month to LinkedIn to get LinkedIn Recruiter were doing what's called X-ray searches, Boolean searches, basically, and they were able to find everybody on LinkedIn. So there wasn't that
Mm.
6 degrees of separation, cut them off in the middle. They were getting everybody, and LinkedIn said, "We're not going to allow that anymore. We're going to obfuscate most of your profile that a recruiter would want. We're going to obfuscate it." And so, like, you've got your name there, but no headline. I think the state is there, but no city. On your about section, you only get a line and a half of your about section.
Mm.
Nothing in the experience area. And what that does is, like, when Google goes to index, it doesn't have anything that you've written about you to kind of guide, how they put their little snippet together. The best thing you can do, and I hate to do this, but if you take your first volunteer option and make it really about what you do, and you tell them, I'm doing this so that Google will index it because LinkedIn obfuscates my profile. And
Mm.
they did that basically for revenue sake. And I, I,
Interesting.
I wish they hadn't done that, but
Interesting.
yeah, they like their money. Can't blame them. They run a business. They do like their money, and that was too many people were understanding Boolean too well and getting around the system. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, I always love what, sort of the back end of LinkedIn, because you're just like, okay, why is that so? And we
They
have
have a
talked
good
we
PR group, don't they?
yes. Yes, yes. Although I just wanna say one more thing too about pals is, I just wanna give you a shout out, Kevin, for, you do all the new features for LinkedIn. And one of the things that I really like about you is that you actually credit who found somebody. And I don't see a lot of other people doing that. They just got, they'll just talk about something new, and it's almost as if like, well, I uncovered it all.
Yeah.
And just by magic, LinkedIn called me and told me that there was going to be this new thing. But I really love that you actually credit the people captured in the wild by. And I think that a lot of people I know have, quietly admitted that really makes them feel good. Don't you agree, Annette? It really
Oh,
makes people
absolutely, absolutely. It's
feel
always a
valued.
it's always a thrill to get shouted out in Kevin's post. Plus, it's also a nice way to give them a little boost because
Oh, yeah.
you have your followers are quite a bit more. The engagement on your post is quite a bit more than many of we other people that that follow you and learn from you. So yeah, I think that is, and that's another one of those things that really does tie back to our topic. This whole idea of, we went with Palentines because we didn't want to be like, oh, about love. I mean, love on LinkedIn. I mean, that's a little bit, too, for the creepy set that we try to avoid. But it really is about, sharing some love with other people and highlighting them. And I am will admit that I don't do that as much as I should. I should look more for ways to do it. But I am also always careful. If I learn something from somebody else, I will say, "Oh, I learned this. My friend Jillian told me this, or my friend Brenda
Right.
told me this."
Credit where
because
credit where
Mhm.
credit is due, and I always think that, like, probably most of us are in the middle, and you have, like, the good bees, who are, like, they're doing what Kevin's doing, they're shouting out, they're doing what you're doing, and they're saying, "Oh, Jillian taught me this trick," or, blah, 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 and then you have the bad bees who are just, like, they're the kind of people who they'll spam you, like they'll tag you in a post that has nothing to do with you. They've just listed your name, and like sometimes they've tagged me in a photo, and it's like I'm not in the photo, and it's like it takes me a while going, how can I untag myself from this crazy post that has nothing to do with me,
You know what? You know what's funny? Brenda Miller has one of the best approaches. If somebody does that to her, she says that's full on permission for her to run an ad in the comments. And she does. She posts, I'm having a new, session over here doing this. So go and sign up.
Oh
It's like
my gosh.
it's the same thing, right? And people laugh about it. They give her credit for it. I think it's brilliant. If they're going to be like that, well, do it again. Do it back, right? Just accept it for what it is, and get something out of it. But I just think
yeah.
it's funny.
No, I love that, and I have to say one of my favorite things that I learned from her is people are all about, oh, the trolls, and if you get a negative comment from someone, to just go down and say, oh, well, thank you for sharing. You've now brought your followers to bring in to see my post, so thank you so much. And it's like, yeah, and but,
Yeah.
she has such a nice way of turning a phrase. It's like, you know, I don't know, smiling while she's giving you a little jab. But hey, I love her, so, I know if she hears this on the podcast, she will take it for the way I mean it.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
we do shout her out because I can just tell you once she did a real great kindness to me, and that one day, this was several years ago, I got a really horrible DM, and it was X-rated, it was horrible, and
Mm.
literally didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it. And I actually reached out to Brenda because I thought, well, who do I know that's a woman that, I could approach and ask this, who would have some experience. And I reached out to Brenda, and I've never met Brenda. It's like we
Mhm.
just know each other through, like, DMs and stuff, right? And she actually, had a whole article on how to handle this. She told me the steps to take, and it was just like, don't just react, do this, how you report, but do this first.
Document,
A
because as
whole
soon as you report it, it's all gone.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And
Well,
she went through all the steps, gave me a whole article about it. And I had so much respect for her to do that because I was a nobody. Like, she didn't know me from Jack at that point, or Jill. And,
mhm.
you know, I think, again, that's another thing, kind of going back around to our topic today, is follow the people that are doing things the right way, because then you're learning skills, and maybe one day if you need somebody, it's like Kevin's always posting, if you get locked out of LinkedIn, make sure you've saved these are the places that you'd go for help. Like, you know make sure you're following good people that give you good advice, because sometimes if you're ever in a situation where you don't know what to do, think it through and get some help. So I think that's really important.
Well, I was gonna say you have to mention Jeff Young, who's now, I think he's
Oh,
training as we're speaking. He's doing a
yes,
giveaway to many people in transition, but he's a brilliant role model.
absolutely.
You can just watch and learn, you know? So, yeah, it is. You follow the right people, see what they're
So,
doing, and do the same, you'll
so
get the same kind of luck.
So as we are getting to the end of our hour, which just sped right by, it seems that kind of the word of the day is kindness, right? I
Mm,
mean, that's really what it's about, being kind to other people. And we could certainly use more of that always.
absolutely. And just like your books reveal something about you. The people that you are in relationships on LinkedIn, that especially when you take their connections, really think about that because it's like, protect your connections. I always look at like when somebody wants to connect with me, it's like I check them out because it's
Mhm.
like I don't know if I want to invite you into anybody can follow you, that's no harm. But it's like if you want to actually connect with somebody, think about, do I really want them to have access to my good people, or are they going to just go through and start spamming people? So be kind and choose to follow kind people, be in relationships with kind people, and be kind to others, because whether you're helping somebody who's above you or somebody who's below you on the journey, we can all,
Mhm.
And it reminds me of, I just read something yesterday, I think, that somebody commented, and they said that, when people are asking to connect with you, because sometimes I think I've been guilty of saying, "Oh, these people want to connect with me." But they want to connect with you for their purpose, not
yes.
for your purpose.
Mhm.
So, that's a good way to think about it. So, I feel like Jillian and I have had our little final thoughts. Kevin, anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
I think that's it. It's mutual respect, right? If you're not in there for mutual benefit of each other, it's not a real relationship, and that's what I always try to strive for.
All righty. Well, then I will
Nice.
say, go ahead, Jillian. I'm sorry.
No, I just said that was nice. I enjoyed that.
Well, I did as well. So if that is it for us, I am going to say goodbye, and Jillian and I will be back next month with a topic and date to be determined. And for everyone out there, I've seen people watching. I can see your eyes up in the corner, so I know you're out there. Although we haven't seen too much like activity, but we know when you're looking. So everyone else, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next month.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.